Welcome, my name's Matt from the Loom of Time.
I'm Shieldsy from Hawaii.
And this is the Tomb of Lime podcast. Welcome to episode 20. As you know, we finished our track-by-track thing, so we're moving on to greener pastures. Today, we're going to be talking about live music, performance thereof, tips and tricks, how to do it the best, what we like, what we don't like. Yeah, should be good.
And all the good times.
All the good times. Yeah, so that hot little ditty right there, that was the Fall? Fate? Fall?
It ended up being the Fall of Odin.
Yeah.
Originally, when it came out as a single, it was the Fate of Odin.
Okay. Is that what's going on?
But it was lovingly known as Fade-a-Bogan at the time.
Yeah, fun times. From the look of that video, that was very smoky.
It was a very smoky gig, a very fun time. Adam could barely breathe. It's amazing he survived.
But, I mean, just listening to that now, because I haven't listened to that in a while, you can hear Adam's snare hits are like hard every time. Like, even in his fills and stuff, like he is hitting his
wondering
full power.
Because you put that video together after that show, and I was wondering if you had touched up the sound at all, because that snare for whether it was GoPro recorded sound or something equally rubbish, the snare really like bites cuts through the sound.
Well, if I recall what I did, like I didn't have the technology or expertise to do anything fancy with it. I think all I did was I took all the audio sources and synced them up and then just kind of leveled them out until they kind of felt balanced.
Yep.
So it was almost like multi-track recording.
It's one of the it's one of the better live recordings that we have, because we've never had
that many cameras.
Well, cameras are one thing, but they're always rubbish at audio because it's a secondary function. We have had actually back in the day when we played some shows with Russell at the Vault, and I think it was maybe post tennis club when we were in the Leagues Club in town, and he had offered up to a bunch of bands that had played there before some desk recorded stuff. So obviously he's got everything from the stage coming to front of house into his desk, but I think he'd recorded a bunch of it, and I can't remember if we ever got access to any of it.
Okay.
The effort that Russell had put in aside, which was amazing, and we miss Russell dearly, is I think it might have been lost on us at the time because we thought we were never really good enough to worry, to bother doing anything with it. I don't know if we've got that. Have we got that?
Maybe
it'd be nice to put something together for old time's
sake.
In a vault. Nice.
To keep it hidden from... maybe you don't want it to be heard.
Cool pun.
Okay, great. I'm sure the early Loom live recordings, I don't think I'd want to surface if I could, I think that we were probably a bit rough around the edges in the old days.
Man, in 30 years' time, that's the stuff that sells records. You put that in the B-sides. We've said it before.
Yeah. I mean, they're certainly milking death for what they're worth. Like, they're releasing full vinyl pressings of just front of house board sound from the 90s or something.
Yeah, I don't want to have to die for the success, though. I want to be around to see it, Yeah,
well, okay.
We'll see.
I mean, there's more than one way to get there, I guess, maybe.
I hope so.
As it happens, Loom of Time did have its first rehearsal as a live unit on the weekend.
Nice.
With a new lineup, new.
Yep.
And it went well, I think.
New improved bass player.
Well, Brad has a little bit more turning up to do in the future, but
a little bit of work to do in the turning up department.
Yes, but okay.
We love you, Brad.
Not to worry about that. I'm still confident that he'll be fine. Yeah. When I first got there and we first went through the first song, we got through the song, right? No problems, but it was rough. But second time we went through, I was like, this is definitely going to work.
Yeah. Nice.
So, looking forward to getting back to the stage, and we'll talk about your recent escapades in that regard in a little while. But let's jump into some more general discussion here about live music.
We're here to talk about live shows.
Yeah. Is there a live show that you can think of that you've been to that you is like your sort of paradigm memory for what live shows are like, or what one impressed you the most when you...
Sure. And there's a couple, and for different reasons, you could categorize why these were my memorable shows. Start with, and I can't remember if we've talked about this before. I'm sure we must have, because it comes up a lot. But going to see Winter Sun in 2017, I think probably their first time to Australia. Yep. I don't know whether or not Yari had been to Australia with Ensiferum before that or not. Can't remember. Anyway, this was Winter Sun, right? Which is much more important to me than Ensiferum ever has been. But yeah, I remember when that got announced and I was so excited, and then we got tickets and I was so excited, and we got there and I was so excited, and while they were playing, whether or not, and I can't specifically remember if it was amazing or excellent or not, or whatever the other weird things about seeing a band that you love so much live and warts and all, it didn't matter, right? Because I was so lost in the moment. It was a very emotional time for me.
Yeah, it's like there's something about when you know the song so well, and then you go and see them almost like brought to life, as it were.
That's right. Yeah, there's just an incredible energy about it. And to be fair, I can't even remember how good they were or weren't. It didn't really matter. It meant that he was there, and I could feel the music, getting rammed into my body. Rather than just, hearing it in your headphones or car speakers or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, I think that was one of those sort of holy grail things where you weren't sure whether you'd ever see them unless you racked off to another hemisphere to
be
find
there.
them.
Yeah, exactly. Go to a Scandinavian festival of some sort where they seem to always play at. But for them to come to the Down Under, something special for us. Definitely. Yeah,
I wonder how much of a barrier it is to come out here these days. Or, well, I mean, let's say pre-pandemic even, because I'm sure that made things worse.
It seemed that whenever a band that you wouldn't expect, whether it's from Europe or America, when they did a Japan tour, it was this is the time. They're coming down. They just haven't announced it yet, though.
Cool. I remember Blind Guardian, when they, I think, first came to Australia. I think first time they came and they played 2 shows in Melbourne, and that was it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tour, I guess. And it was oh, man. But I think I did go to that. I think I made the trip down there because I think I was living at Wagga, and it was closer than here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always feels like if a band is going to come, they're still not going to come close to where most of the country. Well, I don't want to say most of the country. We're a very large country. It's very spread out. It's hard for any band to tour here, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, there's just less dates and further to travel, and smaller crowds maybe, and that's coming from someone who hasn't done much touring.
In the old days, international touring bands even came to Newcastle, but I don't feel like that's big enough anymore. And now it happens less and less, I think.
Yeah, it depends who they are. I can't imagine, when Metallica get round to it on their next cycle, they're not coming to Newcastle.
No.
Are they banned from Newcastle? Was there a thing about them being banned from Newcastle after a show in the 90s or something that was just way too loud?
Can you ban a band from coming to a city? Is that a real thing?
I feel like that's a pretty metal thing to have happened to you. Whether or not it was just arranged as a publicity thing, but I've got that in the back of my mind that mid 90s or maybe early 90s where Metallica came to Newcastle and Newcastle said never again.
It's like Back to the Future where Marty McFly doesn't impress the record execs because he's playing too loud, right? So one gig that I can think of is the first time I saw Opeth. I think
good example.
Maybe Deliverance Damnation Cycle was the first time I saw them at the Enmore Theatre, which is a nice big old building.
Yeah,
I think that was one of the first gigs that I went to that, big metal gigs in the city. I had to convince one of the teachers at my high school to chaperone us because I was too young to sort of do it myself.
Because that would have been in 03.
I'd have to have a look. It might have been, or 02 maybe even,
Oh wow,
maybe. I've got a shirt somewhere. But early days when I was in high school, and I was still in the nosebleeds up in the balcony up there, but it was pretty magical.
Yeah, sure.
Because I think I was really right into Opeth at that point, and it was.
I think the most times that I've seen Opeth has been at the Enmore.
Yeah.
And I think maybe once has been down on the floor. Every other time, and not just for Opeth, but for lots of gigs, they've got a box office, a Ticketek box office that you can call on the phone. You can call the Enmore. When tickets go on sale, you can call them and say, hey, can I get tickets? And I got it down to a point where I called for tickets so much, the same guy would answer the phone every time. It'd almost be like
Oh,
hey
Nick.
Ruben, it's Shieldsy. His name is Ruben. Hey Ruben. And I would say like, I want to get the same seats as last time, which was the very front row of the mezzanine.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right in the middle, right on the aisle, like the center aisle. Those two seats for Ange and I.
Yeah.
So we've got like the perfect view. The view that they shoot for the DVD. That's where we're sitting.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because Ange is like a half a person, tiny person. So she can't see when we're down on the floor, and we're all both old, and so we like to sit down as well.
No, that's a good
so
setup.
yeah, amazing. Like we've seen Opeth a bunch of times like that. We've seen Meshuggah at the Enmore like that, which was absolutely incredible. We saw Fallujah there as well because they came with Killswitch.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, we went to see Fallujah and surprisingly had a good time with Killswitch and surprisingly knew most of the songs. I don't profess to love Killswitch.
Yeah, it's a strange combination of Fallujah and Killswitch.
Yeah, but it didn't matter. Like, Killswitch is coming, they're bringing Fallujah. It's like, I'm going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the Enmore. The Enmore's such a great place.
Yeah.
I can't wait to play a gig there. Fingers crossed. One day, maybe.
Opeth, did they just get too big for the Enmore or something? I remember seeing them at the Big Top as well once. That must have been a pretty big one.
But yeah, the Big Top was earlier than the Enmore, I think. The first time I saw them, they were it was the Big Top, I'm pretty sure, the first time I saw them.
Right, yeah.
In the Ghost Reveries tour in 05 or maybe
right.
06.
Yep.
So I saw them there, and then they came out for, what was after that? Watershed. I think they went back to the Big Top for Watershed.
They might have done a second show at the Big Top, yeah.
And then they came for Heritage, and that was the first time I saw them at the Enmore. And that was the first show that they did no growls.
Yeah, okay.
And man, what an excellent time that was. Like, I remember traveling to that show with a carload of friends, and we stayed at a friend's place sleeping on the floor, and we were all together, and it was such a great time. But the funniest thing was, and it was awkward at the time, but funny at the time too, but there was some people, if not just one particular guy in our group, that I can't remember if he'd ever seen Opeth before, or he'd never heard Heritage or anything like that.
Right.
But big Opeth fan, right?
Right.
And I think you know where this is going. And after that show, he said like, man, that sucked. I'm never listening to Opeth again. That was ridiculous. Who do they think they are?
Yeah.
Playing in a fancy theatre, no growls, just a prog rock gig. He was devastated. And I thought, you idiot, you've missed the point. Like, anyway, happy to say that many times after that, I've seen Opeth since, and bringing back something for the old school fans as well.
I guess when you go to see a band, you expect to hear some new stuff, but you expect to hear a slice of the catalogue that they've built up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
For that gig to have gone down that way, they would have had to have basically omitted a lot of their back catalogue.
And they needed to. Well, I mean, and they played Demon of the Fall too, but completely.
Yes, I recall.
Not death metal.
I thought that was cool, but
it was so cool.
It's cool if you know the original and you've seen the original.
If you've seen the original before and you've got nothing to lose by seeing something different.
Because I feel like that was probably in every set list that they had ever brought to the stage here, at least in the heavy version. So most people that were there, I imagine, had heard that song live plenty of times.
But there would have been lots of people who were seeing Opeth for the first time, whether they were Heritage fans or otherwise, sucked in. I had a good time. Speaking of Opeth though, and also like carrying on with the magical gigs that I've been to, getting to go to the Opera House to see Opeth.
Oh yeah.
Man, that was sensational. And I had never been to the Opera House before.
Okay.
Like sure, everyone's been to the steps or whatever and outside and taken the touristy photos, but never been to a gig there.
Yep.
Didn't know what it was all about inside. And what a majestic place that is.
Oh yeah, that's a nice place inside.
Really nice place. And to see a band like that in there, and they did the death metal thing in there, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And we were sat right like down on the floor, but it was all completely seated, and we were right down the front underneath, like Mendez or whatever. He was right there. Pretty special time.
A controversial opinion here then. I feel like when I think back on those gigs, I feel like it's those spacey proggy moments that really sell the atmosphere and the live magical moment. I mean,
oh yes,
and maybe the heavy stuff, does it translate as well to the stage as the proggy stuff? I don't know if it does.
I don't know. I mean, go back to that epic episode, and there's plenty of epic stuff going on in death metal. It doesn't have to be necessarily prog. There's other ways to build size or whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Epic. So you can see that at a gig. And example there, Opeth, like the Deliverance outro.
I was going to say
there's epic.
There's almost like trance-like quality to some extended rhythmic sections that you can just sort of groove to,
completely zone out.
And it just sort of takes over all your senses. Like
Meshuggah at the Enmore was the same, like that pounding rhythmic trance-like euphoria combined with I guess you weren't at that show.
Meshuggah.
It was probably. Were you at the 9 Inch Nails show in Newcastle?
I was not.
Okay, so the laser light show at this Meshuggah show was every bit as good, if not better, than any Tool show I'd ever been to.
Okay.
Unbelievable laser show that went with this music. So on stage, and the Enmore's quite a big stage, each of the members were fairly spread out, but in their own right, and especially Jens in the middle is just an enigma in that setting and that sound with those lights. Okay. Like maybe the lights were emanating from behind him, so he was just like a shadowy figure in the middle there by himself. All that sound was coming out of him. It was just, oh man, really, really, pokes at your very soul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've read interesting stuff about the effects of music on the brain and how it ties into a very, very long history of the human race and our roots. And there's something about music that unlocks some of the stuff in our brain that psychedelics does as well. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the brain that we don't really understand. But there's something very, very deep about music, and it seems to be that live situation really brings it on more than when you're in a different environment or less. Yeah,
even more so than just maybe being in a big room with it turned up really loud, but it's not, live. It's not the same as like having a guy there. And I don't know what the difference is because it's just stuff coming out of a speaker, right?
Well, I'll give you some theory then.
Yeah.
There seems to be cognitive things going on in human beings that are to do with how we socially interact. One thing that I thought was really interesting, I don't know if I brought this up before, was mirror neurons, which is when you watch someone do something, some of the same neurons that firing in their brain while they do it fire in the brains of people who watch them. And we think it's a mechanism for people learning how to do stuff by watching people do it.
Okay.
Now, that might not have anything to do with it, but there's something about the visual component and the social component that activates probably parts of our brain that just sitting in a room and listening would never do. Right? There's probably something to do with that sort of stuff.
That might be touching on, when I was telling you about that pre-Ailstorm jam that we had in Newcastle that was so good.
Oh, yeah.
I was almost like emotionally overcome of, in what I was experiencing. Like what I was witnessing was so good. And I was, at the time where I felt that, I was not really a part of what was going on. I was just a mere bystander, observer.
But it's almost like just by being there, you are a part of it,
That's right.
Yeah.
And whatever was going off in, bouncing between Cal and Vaughan, like it was leaching into my very being as well. And I'm just like standing there melting going, oh man, this is so good. But yeah, we definitely nailed those pre-gig practices.
Okay. Now, you mentioned laser light shows and this sort of thing.
Yes, yeah.
Now, one of the things that I think I notice when people talk about when a band is good live is a big production. Is like you have to go and see their band because they've got a big production. Now,
like Kiss.
Like Kiss. I was thinking like Iron Maiden do big
lots
stage
of stage
things.
props.
And
I remember I saw them on a Marth and they had like a longboat on the stage. Or a giant Viking helmet or something like that. The drum riser was a...
Oh, yeah, they've got pretty big productions I've seen as well. Yeah. I mean, touring to foreign countries with that kind of thing going on must be madness as well. All right, there's two things I wonder about how people receive like live shows and think something's really good. One is, does how much of a big deal is production? Like, if you have a big production, I mean, if all bands had the same dollar value for their thing, would these big production bands be not as good, or would they be just good? And that one thing. And then the second thing I'm thinking is, are people more inclined to say this band is great live if they happen to love that band's music a lot, and it might be coloring the way that they perceive it.
Like there's a bias.
If you can separate those things out, because I think obviously there's reasons why you can see why people would enjoy those things. What is it then, if you were to separate the bands from that thing, what is it that makes a band good live? Or is that a huge part of it?
Yeah, I think stage presence has a lot to answer for. And it's not just for, whoever is the front man or, arguably or it's widely understood that the front man is in control, right, of what's going on the stage, and the rest of everyone else is kind of too busy with what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
If a front man is not playing guitar, he has to do something else to be entertaining.
Yeah.
And that can be as simple as like stand there and do nothing and be enigmatic as possible, like mysterious and whatnot. That is a thing, right?
Yes, sure.
It doesn't work for everyone. People need to understand that about you already. Otherwise, it'll be like, this guy's boring.
Yeah. Well, and also it probably has something to do with the kind of music they're doing.
Yeah, so the front man has got a big job to do in terms of stage presence, but I think everyone on stage can contribute to that.
Yep.
For sure, like whether it's interacting with the crowd or interacting with each other or just playing the absolute pants off their instruments, whatever it might be, they've got a part to play. So if your production can somehow include a video of some sorts,
that's the thing that people do,
behind the band or in front. I remember seeing some early tennis club shows where a band, I can't remember who they were, but they in the changeover between the bands, they spent a considerable amount of time cutting into their own playing time, setting up all these TV screens on the stage. And I thought, this better be good. Is what you're going to all this effort to set up to do going to be worth it?
Yep.
And I think in the end, probably not, because otherwise I'd remember.
At the same time, I have seen advice that you really don't want a set that goes too long, especially if you're a support act, if you know what I mean.
Sure, it's not like their set went too long though. It's like the time they spent setting up cut into their set time.
No, I guess it's more like they're going to spend extra time setting us stuff up and have a shorter musical set, right? So they don't overstay their welcome musically, and that could be a good thing. It's more like more concentrated, or just your best material, whatever sort of set. So I mean, it might work out, but then again, you might veer too far off to that side and then have a short set, so people feel like it's.
My memory of that was they veered too far.
Okay.
I think if they had a 20-minute changeover and 30 minutes on stage, they might have had 25-minute changeover and 25-minute set.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, oh, come on, dude, that was not worth it. Just play your damn songs and then get out of the way. Other props on stage as well. Like people like to have fancy mic stands.
Oh, yeah.
Which is cool. I like that. I thought about doing that in the past and then, never got around to doing anything. And
what kind of ideas did you have?
So way back in the day, before Evocatus and we were still Masters of Orion, we had a song called and about Excalibur.
Okay.
The myth of the sword in the stone. So the idea was that I was going to make up, and I was a machinist at the time, so I was into making stuff. I was going to make an enormous broadsword out of aluminium or something, and fashion it into a kind of a mic stand that was like embedded in some sort of fake rock that was standing in front of me, which would have been really cool to use as a mic stand until sometime during the song where I could pull the sword out of the rock. Very cheesy. Anyway, that was too hard. I'd still love to make a sword one day. I like swords.
Yeah, okay. I imagine that adding that extra weight to your sort of load-in gear would probably be a bit of a hassle too, right?
At the time, I was just... it wouldn't be a huge rock, right? I'd probably make it lighter.
Foam or something.
Yeah. Which then would just fall over, I imagine.
So
that never happens.
Sweaty shows in small rooms do it for me over a big production every time. Intimacy in a gig can be a plus in the opposite direction of those big festival sets. And I have heard bands, like I'm pretty sure the My Dying Bride guy say that he almost prefers the small gigs and so on over festivals because, you're up on stage trying to emote and there's dudes over there, spilling their beer, and there's dudes over there, buying merch from some other band and so on. It's harder for him to connect with the audience or something.
Some other, like you're playing at 4:00 in the afternoon in like sweating daylight and you're singing songs about how, dark the world is or whatever. It doesn't really fit. Kind of like how, Dimmu Borgir came out in leather and fur and whatnot. in
the sweltering Australian
peak of summer sound wave. Just not the vibe, you know. Anyway, it's all good.
Yeah.
We had fun. But yeah, I understand. Yeah, small, sweaty shows, good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Big shows are annoying because, people, right? People are idiots.
Yeah, well, I guess when you think about it, like, you go, a big show is really cool. But at the same time, if you could see that band, in a more personal space where you...
At the Royal or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even, like we had the small ballroom, right? That's quite an intimate sort of venue. And you can always be really close to the band and, those are cool gigs.
Yeah, for sure.
So, pros and cons, I suppose. So stage presence certainly has something to do with the front man and interacting with the crowd, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
It's for me, it's a little hard to quantify exactly what stage presence is. I guess it's just being into the music and putting your energy into it and visually seeing that happening. My sort of opinion is when it comes to you putting that energy in is that even if there's no one in the bar and even if everyone's just even if you're playing an old people's home and they're just sitting around and just eating and drinking and no one cares, like I feel like you have to put in that energy because if one person has, like, if you don't put in the energy, the one person who is paying attention will be like,
they're not putting in any effort. Yeah.
But if you do put in the energy, like that person then goes and tells people, and then 2 people turn up at your next show, and you put in the energy then, and then they tell people, oh yes, they're really great live.
Yeah. Another thing in the chat about pyro on stage. So I was thinking about that before in terms of like props and stuff on stage. Don't get me wrong, it's impressive. It's a big setup. And when it goes off, everyone's like, wow, big boom, bang, crash.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I might have a different opinion of it if I had access to it, maybe.
Have you had your eyebrows singed? Is this why you're bitter about pyro?
No. No. Not by pyro. Like my beard's been on fire before at work. Okay. That was nasty.
Just industrial
risk, accident.
Yeah, okay.
No real casualties though. Okay. Like I've still got my beard.
Yes. Okay. Speak for yourself.
But yeah, like pyro, I think maybe it's only reserved for the hugest of productions, and otherwise it can probably just detract from what's really going on.
Okay, but
the attention that can be paid.
I imagine long ships and things like that are also reserved for the biggest of productions. Do you have the same opinion?
It doesn't have so reserved for big productions. But what I mean is the expense of attention from the punters that can take away from what else is going on. Like you might be there along with the music and really getting into it and enjoying it, and then it's like, geez, an explosion. I don't know. Maybe kids write home and say like, that was really sick. I don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is almost, when it happens, it is often louder than what the music is, and it just suddenly it's really shocks loud. You. Like, so yeah, perhaps maybe there's just a right way to do it.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I remember I saw Immortal in Melbourne, and he does a fire breathing stint in the middle of but the place they were playing was pretty small venue, and it was low ceilings, and he had to, usually he'd spray right up into the air, but the roof was too low, so he tried to kind of angle it. Like how did they approve him doing this in here? I have no idea, but that's the actual frontman doing a thing. So maybe
that's kind of cool
during a instrumental section.
He's got
or
stuff
something
going on anyway. I saw Gua. Speaking of low ceilings, at the Factory Theatre, and they were like spraying their blood and whatever other bodily fluids.
Yes.
And it was everywhere, man. And those ceilings were white. And yeah, there was all this like fake blood on the floor and on the ceiling and everywhere. And I thought, like, it's cool. Like, whatever, it's a great show. But how did they get away with that? And did they ask permission or forgiveness? I don't know. Because that would have been a lot of cleanup, especially on the ceiling. Surely
when, the promoter talks to the venue and they book Gua, the venue's like,
like, this better be good.
They better sell out, and everyone had better buy 5 drinks or whatever. And
yeah, exactly.
I suppose that's another thing. The imbibing of alcohol can probably have an effect on people's experience of music. And I guess these all just combine to make it a kind of transcendental thing that people come away with this very strong emotional response to the live show.
Yeah,
that we've pointed out lots of reasons why people feel that way, but when we really analyze it, there's still this human element that we can't truly replicate any other way. Like if we truly understood it, maybe we'd be able to replicate it some other way, but we...
Oh, then there'd be a formula, right? Maybe someone has a formula. I don't know.
Speaking of replication, during the lockdowns, there were a bunch of bands that went on to do like, online gigs, right?
Oh, yeah.
And as much as it isn't the same, I still would make a habit of like sitting down on a weekend with a beer or whatever on the couch and putting on, it's gig day, dear. I'm going to listen to some music now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did that during lockdown.
So I remember Enslaved did a couple of... like a series of gigs. They called it their cinematic summer tour or something. And they did a couple of different sets and featuring different eras of their band's thing and in different environments. And that was really cool.
Yeah.
I know that Behemoth did quite a big production. They got in a church and set it all on fire and had these little cinematic pieces in between their songs and stuff. And
incredible.
Yeah. So those certainly ramped up in like, I think when people realize, hey, we need to do something and to stand apart,
Yeah.
I think they just started off with guys in a venue that was shut and playing on a stage with no one in the audience or even in their bedroom, just play through videos essentially. I almost developed a habit for checking out live music on YouTube after that, right? And it's still, I still enjoy consuming live music in that way, if you know what I mean, as long as it's like a proper production. I can't
not
for
like
a
the garbage
second.
we watched at the start of this.
Well, I mean, that was not so bad. But the guy who's holding his phone and he flips it from vertical to horizontal, and you can hear him talking. I don't know why people upload like a 1 hour set of them holding a phone like this.
Yeah. Like Tool live in Rio or something like that from your phone. No, dude.
I do like to take a few photos at a show, but
it's not for reproduction.
Once you're standing there with the video out, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do remember, who was it? It might have been Corey Taylor saying, put down your phones, getting angry about people doing it. And then they spliced together a video clip of people's phone footage for a video clip that they did. And then he was called on it and he was like, oh, yeah, okay. I mean, it's all right, fine. Rammstein have quite a reputation for pyro in their shows.
Yep.
And that it filters into the mainstream, and even Kylie on her phone is like, wait, what am I seeing? Is this Rammstein? And it's like from a balcony 2 miles away from the venue, and they're seeing all this pyro stuff flying out of the stadium or whatever. And
they have big production, eh?
Yeah,
I'm sure I haven't seen Rammstein live.
They can't have begun with huge production, but I imagine to get to where they are, they still would have had to have been a good live band even at the beginning, right?
They just had a certain thing that people latched onto right from the get-go, and they were onto a good thing and they just rode it.
Yep.
I don't know whether or not they're pioneers. I don't really have any other examples of stuff that's like them.
Yeah, well,
in terms of
they have to be in some regards.
Yeah.
They're somewhat unique in the scene, I'm sure, and have their copycats and so on. Let's have a little chat about what we do in the live situation. Now, you guys have had a gig recently that I saw a bit of footage from, so please tell me about the experience you had opening for Ailstorm.
Hiatus, our band that you partook in for a little bit.
Yep.
Which was nice. We were asked to play at the Metro Theatre with a little band from Scotland called Ailstorm, and we thought, give that a crack. I don't think we've got anything else on. That was pretty exciting. And as the time went on, and the Melbourne show sold out, and then the Brisbane show sold out, and then the Sydney show sold out, and I think in the end all of them sold out. Got pretty exciting. It got pretty real in the lead up to it when. We've all been to the Metro before and love the Metro as a venue for being, of a certain size, but also of a certain size that can attract certain size bands, but still to be quite intimate.
Yeah, sure.
You can get up, nice and close to the bands and not too far away from the stage. It's got those tiered levels. So if you want to chill at the back and lean on a rail and still be able to see, and it's really good for that,
How far in advance did you know that you'd gotten that gig? Was it months? Were they that organised?
Yeah, it was months in advance. We got the email. I was at work. It was in the afternoon, and I'd got an email through, like on my phone, with the first, inquiry, like, "Hey, can you guys do this show on this date?" And like I just remember being ecstatic the whole afternoon. And as the news got out to the other guys and we were in the chat talking about it, it was just like, oh man. I think some people chucked around a joke about like, I'll just have to see what I've got in my calendar or whatever, see if I'm available. But it was all, in jest. And
did you even need to check, or were we just like, no matter what's going on?
Yeah, pretty
these
much.
These guys are going to
it was
make
gonna, like
happen.
whoever said like sorry guys, I'm not available.
You've rescheduled your wedding for this day. Like, too bad.
Yeah, you need to re-look at your priorities here because whether you like Hailstorm or not, this is a big deal for us.
Sure.
And whether or not you could argue that at the time, now that it's been done and in hindsight, it was incredible for us in terms of, the time that we had and the people that saw us and their reaction to it and everything like that.
All right, so lead me through the lead up.
Yeah.
What did you do differently for this gig leading up to it?
I only really talk about it a lot and kind of be anxious about it and excited about it. We didn't really do anything different. We made sure, okay, so we've been working on some new music, right? We've got a bunch of new songs. We've already started playing them live. And then we engaged an artist, the Ark1 Project or something like that. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But yeah, we saw his stuff on Insta or Facey or something like that, and we just hit him up with this design idea.
Okay.
That was, related to one of these new songs. And we got him to make a T-shirt design for us. So the one thing that we did for this show was to get that T-shirt done.
Okay. Because you already had a bunch of other merch from your various releases ready to go.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. So we already had a bunch of merch and some of it was pretty low on stock. So we made sure that we stocked up on that stuff because we knew we were going to be exposed to a lot more people than normal at an event. So yeah, that was one thing that we did different. Otherwise, in terms of preparation, we didn't do anything particularly different.
I think it's like you have a good setup. You know what you want to do.
We know what we do.
You've been doing it.
We've got a formula.
I guess just for a gig like this, you just make 100% sure.
Do it well. Yeah. That's right, yeah. And in the meantime, or maybe even around the same time, we had been offered another local show like 2 weeks prior. And we thought, great, that's going to be perfect. Like practice, let's hone our skills, let's get ready for the stage, and we've got even a gig that we can take to the stage and just feel it out, albeit in a much smaller environment. It was at the small ballroom, which was good fun on a Thursday night. Yeah, that was cool. Good practice, and then we jammed a couple of times since then, like we talked about in the lead up to that show, and we all just felt pretty good.
Great.
And there was nothing really special, like wasn't on any kind of fitness regime or really I don't know what the other guys did, to be honest. I mean, I did a little bit of practice at home, not out of control. Like I've definitely practiced a lot more leading up to other shows in the past, whether or not they were like a Varkin battle and I practiced like every day for 2 weeks before the show, which does make a difference, kids. Like practice, it actually works. I was surprised. I was surprised at how much I practiced, and it actually made me better. So
amazing.
Surprised.
Who'd have thought?
I am super not good at practicing. I take it for granted that I can just get by with the very little effort that I put in.
Okay, but you noticed the difference in yourself when you
did notice the difference. Anyway, I had kind of that theory in my head leading up to Hailstorm, but it didn't really execute it very well. I had lots of other stuff going on at work and amongst other things, and never really got round to knuckling down and being really diligent. But
you've kind of been maintaining a certain level of it anyway, right?
That's right. And took comfort in the fact that we jammed a fair bit, and we had that other practice gig. I mean, I call it a practice gig. It was still a good gig. But we treated it as like the the national finals before we went to the Olympics. So that was cool. The lead up to the gig, we were all just really eager and excited, and it was even funny. The realization that we didn't really have to make too much of an effort with promoting that show, because it was going to make no difference.
What are you going to do, sell more tickets?
We couldn't sell any more tickets. It literally sold out. We didn't have tickets allocated to us for us to sell. Like, hey, if you want tickets to this show, hit us up. We didn't get given that. It's just like, hey, you guys are playing this show. We're going to pay you money. You can buy your tickets at this link. Or, tell people they can buy their tickets at this link.
I guess they've got a marketing budget. They don't require...
No, yeah, exactly. So once it's sold out, and I guess it would be an expectation for us to promote that show and attract people to that show.
It's not like you're not going to tell people that you...
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And to be fair,
it's like could you bill us as this other name? We want to do it in secret, you know.
A lot of the people that would have been coming to see us play, regardless of the event, were already going to Ailstorm anyway.
Sure.
Similar crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of like maybe a unique thing for us as a band, is we can fit into a number of different gig kind of lineups in terms of theme.
Yeah.
You know, that's like let's call it a folk metal show. We can play folk metal shows with other folk metal bands, no problem.
Yeah.
We can play thrash metal show, no problem. A lot of our sound is rooted in thrash. Mm-hmm. We can play death metal shows.
Yeah.
You know, we're not death metal.
Yeah.
And
you know, if you've got folk instruments in your band and you do lots of little you know, folky ballady bits in your music, you might not fit into some death metal shows, but you 100%. Guys, even though you're in the sort of the armor and everything, you look right at home next to the folk metal guys.
Yeah. Next to the other Viking metal band and the pirate metal band.
The death metal band guys absolutely are cool with that as well, as long 100%. As you deliver the goods, and you got the goods.
Yeah, goods. If they dudes can shred and do double kicks and I can scream, you know, people are all about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's worked out well for you.
We fit in well with a bunch of those different crowds. Thankfully, though, for a crowd the size of it as it was at the Metro for Ailstorm, and the people, that particular demographic who are into that kind of music, respond really well to what we do on stage. They were very into it.
Yeah, so I saw, the little Insta stories and so on of all the people that had posted stuff, footage from it.
Yeah.
And the crowd was right into it.
Yeah, they loved it. We couldn't have been lucky enough.
In the pits and everything.
Yeah.
You joked on our last podcast that, we want to get a photo of us in front of the band, for the 19 people that turn up and whatever.
I did make that joke.
Yes, you did make that joke, but it was a...
There was 1,300 people in that photo.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah.
And you were not just the support band that while people are off there buying a drinks waiting. You were not the Ailstorm waiting room.
No.
They were right there and they were ready to go. There's a whole bunch of factors that are contributing to how well this went, I suppose.
Yeah.
What do you I mean, not to ask you to toot your own horn here, but what do you think is the factor that really drove you guys being picked for this particular show, as opposed to any other bands that are floating around New South Wales?
All right, so I can answer that question directly, except for get to a point about how the decision was made that it was us. But anyway, so the tour was being organised by Soundworks, Direct Touring. They were bringing Ailstorm over. What was explained to us is that Ailstorm like to pick their own local supports. Right. And obviously they like to pick their touring band as well. So, they got hooked up with Valhalla doing the whole tour. That's cool. We were curious about we got offered this show and then we saw the other support bands around the other cities, some bands who we'd played with before from various places. I think Carthus played one of the Melbourne shows maybe, and FUC from Brisbane played the other show. We've played shows with those guys before.
Yeah.
And thought, man, that's a strange, it seems to be a strange lineup and nothing particularly consistent. So why us? And so we asked Dicey from Soundworks Direct, by the way, man, how did we get picked up for this show? So as I was saying before, touring company says to Ailstorm, or Ailstorm, says give me a list of bands who are going to fit the bill for, each leg of the tour. And so Chris was presented with a pile of bands that could play the Sydney show, which was totally unsolicited. And we were included in that list. And Chris picked us to play that show. I don't know how.
He must have Googled something, right, and seen something of yours, right? Surely there would be that level of diligence, I suppose, on his part. That he just
maybe,
didn't go,
I don't know.
Didn't roll a dice.
I don't know, is he just drunk all the time? The fact of the matter is he somehow chose us. I don't know whether or not that was blindly picking from those guys.
I think if he was being diligent, he would go and he would have a look to see if you've got footage of you guys playing live and what kind of response you got. And you have Warriors of the Sea as a live video clip type thing.
Yeah.
I would imagine that he probably came across something like that of yours. And
perhaps. Ironically, we didn't play that song in amongst the other two bands that played songs about stuff going on in the ocean.
Yeah, okay.
We decided not to play the ocean song.
I didn't want to overdo it.
We did row a boat, though. So
yeah, okay.
There's that.
The other thing that's probably important with bands is that they have live experience, and you guys have been pretty consistent about getting to the stage over the last few years, I would say, over your album cycles and so on, and you've been, consistent, professional, and all that stuff. I don't know, would the direct touring guys know that of you? Have they booked shows for you before?
Yeah, so one of the direct guys, if not the direct guy, is Dave Haley.
Yeah.
And so we played a bunch of shows with his bands before.
Yep.
A couple of times with Psychroptic, and he plays drums for King as well. We played a show with those guys.
Oh, yes.
And honestly, we asked the question at the time. I don't think we played with Psychroptic at that point. We played with King at the Stag in Sydney. I think I asked the guys, I was like, how did you get onto us for playing this show? We appreciate it. We're just curious how we came to be here. Pretty sure he just saw our logo somewhere and thought like, oh, that looks cool. And clicked on it and listened to it. Like, I'm not joking. And said, that looks cool. Let's check them out and see if they're, available. And there we are. And that was another kind of a mixed bill. You got King, who's kind of like, I don't know, how would you describe King?
Black metal, I'd call it.
Black metal-y kind of epic stuff as well.
Epic.
And then like Somnium Nox, which was a bit, maybe folkier, a bit nastier in the black metal realm. And then Us.
Yeah, okay.
And Black Helm as well, which were like more death metal, I suppose. But yeah, it was a little bit of a mixed bill, and we opened that show. But so yeah, we had some history with Soundworks before.
Yep.
Even to the point where I need to follow that up and say, hey, like Soundworks, we're here, we're not going anywhere. You should book us for more shows.
I wonder if you had been offered any of the shows that you'd worked with them before and said no, has that ever happened, or have you said yes to everyone?
Have we approached those guys or anyone in particular? Anyone at all?
Well, I mean, maybe you can say everyone at all, but certainly with the guys with the Soundworks, Dave Haley, if he's ever approached you before, or even multiple times, and you've said no, that would probably be the end.
Oh,
right?
Sure, yeah. Why would they say yes if you just ask them for the fifth time and they've said no every other time? You just stop asking, right?
So, I mean, for you guys to be consistently available to be able to do it is a really good sign for dependability, let's say, in the music scene, which is probably something that they need to value in their business, right?
Well, even the last time we played with Psychroptic, we asked them.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So the first time...
showing initiative too, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we played that first time with King. So those guys picked us out because of our logo, whatever. It's cool.
Yeah.
They can play the show, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're just opening. Then the Psychroptic first show in Newey that we played, we got invited by the other touring band to play that show, Black Reno. So don't know whether or not Psychroptic had any say in that. I imagine they probably would have signed off on it and said, yeah, that'll do, whatever.
Sure.
And then the next Psychroptic tour that came through Newey got announced, and straight away, we sent Dave an email like, hey, man, remember us? Can we open that show in Newey? And he's like, yeah, man, sure, why not?
Yeah.
So that was cool. So I guess, we had a little bit of history there, which might be how we ended up in that small circle of bands that they gave to Ailstorm to pick from. You've
been building something, and it's
I like to think so.
It's come to a point where that has paid off for sure.
But not a great deal of thought or effort going into it. To be fair, it's just been a lot of luck and a little bit of like, where there's a carrot dangling, like just chase that carrot just a little bit.
I don't think it's luck. I think if you had never played a show, but you had still made the music that you'd made or whatever, and you had it out on the internet, or whatever, that would be luck if he had found that. But the fact that you've been consistent doing stuff, and being there, being dependable, being professional, being good at the having good music and all that sort of I think having good music is like the baseline, right? But actually doing the work on top of that to push forward.
And I guess like being professional for us is something that I guess almost comes normally to us. Like we've all got like boring ass day jobs, man, where we have to be professional all the time. So just extending that out to what we're doing as a band is almost second nature anyway.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
It's not like we're all... I don't know
you
how
have
to
work
explain.
ethic, right?
That's right.
And
Yeah, there's a certain ethic to it.
Yeah.
And a presence to it without... I don't know, without being like a businessman about it, which, we're not. I mean, like day-to-day jobs, lives, we have businessmen about what we're doing, right?
Well, I guess success in what you're trying to do here is not necessarily measured in dollars.
No, not at all. Man, we are in the wrong job if that's the case.
That's right.
Yeah.
But success and how to achieve what your goals are, that translates whether you're trying to make money or not.
And then, like also just how to interact with people.
Sure.
And not like alienate people. And
sure.
Yeah, it's no good, sending a text message to someone like, hey man, remember us, put us on a show. In so many words. There's a certain decorum to strike.
You can't deliberately sabotage yourself by just being a punk or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless that's the target. It's like, oh man, these guys don't give a shit. Like, let's put them on.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like the kind of thing that you would have in a movie about that kind of thing, but not actually something that happens in real life.
It's not real life, folks.
Yeah. Tell me, the day of the gig, what are you doing? What do you do? Did you have a rehearsal the day of the gig?
Yeah, the day of the gig we rehearsed.
Yeah.
Back to our regular studio, Novatone. I got up quite early, did my regular, albeit like a couple of hours later than I'd get out of bed to go to work, but still got out of bed, did my regular morning routine stuff, and then just drove to Newey, straight to the studio.
Yep.
Bashed out a 2-hour set.
Yep.
Where we like get everything out of the car, pack it into the studio, build the stage, bash the set out, like in its entirety without stopping.
Yep.
Like it's like ready, set, go. We're going, 30 minutes nonstop, like we would at the show. And generally we talk about it there and talk about like whatever mistakes anyone made and do we need to go back and focus on one particular song. And like, thankfully we're at a point where we didn't have to do that. It's not like, I need to just double check on, the way this riff goes into that solo or blah, blah, blah. There was none of that. It was like everyone was pretty comfy. So I'm pretty sure we just bashed the set out in its entirety again.
Now, here a question while you brought that up.
Yep.
Do you guys have essentially the set and how it is going to be live set up for you to practice at home the way that it is? Or is there some stuff that you work out in the rehearsal studio and you have to kind of remember from show to show to get it right?
So at home for me, no. At home for Vaughan, probably yes. Because Vaughan has at his house that lives there, the device that we have on stage.
Oh yeah, sure. Okay.
That has like
coordinates the clicks.
Yeah,
and things,
that's right. The clicks and the backing tracks and everything. Like he's got the thing that on stage we would just press play and we play along to that thing. That's at his place, it's not at my place. So I have done it before, but I didn't really do it for this, where I would set up all the tracks into Cubase and I'd just record all my rehearsings in one big half an hour long set where I've just got a single vocal track that I am yelling at a microphone in my room at home. And I've done that for a lot of gigs before. Actually, before Melbourne, when we went to that Varken battle, where it did matter how good our performance was, and I did practice a lot.
Because it didn't matter for Hailstone, right?
It's not a competition. We just had to be good. We didn't have to necessarily impress anyone. But for Melbourne, it definitely mattered. So it definitely had to be good and bring our A game and be the best we could be.
Yep.
Training montage.
Yep.
I had the set built like super accurately at home on a Cubase track where I had the backing tracks and the intros and all the other bands, all the stems mixed in and everything, and I just sung along to that.
Is there much difference between studio recording versions of the songs and the live ones that you do? Like, I know that when I played with you guys, there was shortened, abbreviated, radio-friendly edits of things, but outside of that, is there much difference?
Only very slight edits, and I have had some feedback too from another guy who's seen us live a bunch of times, and he said that words to the effect of, it's remarkable how similar we sound on stage, like live in person, to what we are on the record. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of cool, because like if you're trying to do that, it's easy to miss the mark.
Sure.
But it's also cool to see when a band has got like a studio version and then when they take it to the stage, it's completely different, like on purpose.
Sure. Yep.
That's cool. But the cool thing about our situation at the moment, and I'd like to explore differences in the future, is that what we do on the record, we can replicate it like almost identically on the stage. The thing that does vary is out of necessity, like the backing vocals are not me like they are on the record, or, you know, for the most part, the backing vocals are Cal and Vaughn. Oh, so you talked about that cut version of Blood of the Nile. Now that we play Odin and we finish with that, the breakdown or the rowing section in Odin, it's doubled. So the studio version goes through that, you know, however many bars it is once. That is twice as long when we do it live now.
Okay.
So
that's
normal
as long,
for
or do you
us.
do the second time differently, or is it just,
No, it's just exactly
going?
the same again.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that when it comes to doing things differently, or when things are best represented from your album on the stage as well, is that the representing your album very well is probably of most benefit to people who haven't heard your music before.
For sure.
And then the differences are of the benefit for the benefit of the people who are familiar.
Who already know the music. Yeah, that's for sure.
So I imagine that you knew that with an Ailstorm gig that there would be plenty of fresh faces that had not heard your music before.
Plenty is an understatement.
But I mean, they're familiar with you now, right?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, you know, and lots of people bought CDs at that show, I think.
And if you had a good handle on what's on the CD and you took that to the stage in a way that would well representative, they would have a good idea of what they're going to get when they're buying that album, and that's good for them.
That's right, because they'll hear the album and recognize the song.
Yeah, they're not going to be like, hey, wait, this Odin only has half the amount of moshing in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm rowing in my car as I'm driving along here, and I'm not doing it for as long. No.
Yeah, I've only rode for 16 bars, you know, I haven't even got out of my driveway.
So you had this rehearsal where everything went pretty swimmingly because you all have a pretty good handle on what you're doing, to the fact that you've got a good session that you can look at home even, and have a good handle on what you're doing. You know?
Exactly. Like it all becomes so well rehearsed in a way that it becomes autopilot. Mm-hmm. That was one of the things too. I actually, unless like if I can skip ahead to the actual time on the stage, just while we're talking about the rehearsal and everything being normal, the experience that, I mean, speaking for myself, my own experience, once we got onto the stage and started the set and we were just going through the motions, right? Everything was completely normal. We were together on a stage playing the same set we've been playing for 6 months or whatever. You know, we were well versed in that set. Same click track, same guys making the same mistakes all the time. Me running out of breath in the same spots, and me using the same techniques to try and claw back at it so it doesn't become obvious to anyone who's listening. Everything was normal, completely normal.
Yeah, okay.
Up until the point where there was the end of the song, where I could then hear the crowd, because 1,000 people sounds different than 30 people. And there was a couple of times on stage where I had to like consciously gather my shit, like
not get overwhelmed by them,
losing it on the stage, going like just melting into a puddle or whatever, because I was overcome. Like I recognized that had started, and I was like,
show some confidence.
But it was absolutely incredible. That was the only difference, you know.
Do you plan your inter-song banter, that kind of thing, or do you just wing it?
I mostly wing it. I might have a couple of nuggets that I've thought of maybe on the drive down.
Yeah.
And then I get disappointed with myself after the set that I forgot to bring any of them up. So not rehearsed, not choreographed, and I did pretty well winging it actually. After the first song in the set, Cal had some technical difficulties and had to, like with his wireless stopped working, and he had to plug his guitar in. And I did not know what was going on. I didn't know that there was anything wrong. We got to the end of Centurion. I started talking, addressing the crowd, blah, blah, blah. Started talking
Stalling for time without knowing it.
Started talking about the next song and introducing it. And then it became apparent that the next song was not starting as I had expected it would. And I kind of looked at Vaughn or looked at Adam and I was like, start the song. Like, what's going on? And I looked at the player and it was stopped. And I looked at Vaughn, he said, yeah. And he pointed at Cal and he's furiously like winding a cable out to plug into his rig and plug into his guitar. And then I was like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on here. Anyway, Romans didn't have great wireless technology, so here we are.
That we know of?
Yeah, that we know of, yeah. Not that it was written down anywhere, chiseled into a tablet. So he said to me after the set, he said, man, thanks for covering me while I was doing that. And I was like, man, I had no idea. I was just talking. I honestly didn't know what was going on. And then by the time I'd realised, like it was like 3 seconds later and we're back into the next song.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that was nice. Anyway, back to leading up to the gig. We got down there and went straight to the venue. The traffic was horrible. Once we got into Sydney, some of the worst that I'd ever sat in, or at least for a long time anyway. I think there was some kind of roadworks going on around.
Classic.
Oh, we couldn't go through the harbour tunnel. So everyone was going over the bridge. So going into over the bridge was like chaos, where you've got like 11 lanes that turn into 2 lanes. And anyway,
5 different ways to get off the bridge.
We were comfy because we had hours and hours of time up our sleeve.
Nice.
So no problem there. Like I think our arrival time was like 5:30 and we were stuck in that traffic at 3 o'clock or something. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So, we loaded in and we met the guys and they gave us the rundown, and then we just went and got something to eat and watched the sound check of all the other bands. And
you got to do a sound check at the end of their stuff?
That was the beauty of our sound check is last because we're on first.
Yep.
So we've got a lot of time to set up the stage for us.
Yep.
Then do a sound check, which basically was like all the line checks, and then followed by, we basically played the entire song, made sure that everything there was down pat, and then tools down, go do something else for a while until doors, because essentially as soon as sound check's done, you can do doors. And because sound check was earlier than scheduled, finished earlier than scheduled, they opened the doors earlier, because by this point, like, people were lined up around the block to get in.
Yep.
And so the earlier you let people in, the quicker or the more people you can get in by the time you're on the stage. And by the time the people were pouring in, we were already backstage and didn't really get much of a view of what was going on out in the room. We were side stage, in the minutes leading up to going out on stage when we were due to start playing. And we could see that the room was full.
I'm getting nervous. You just telling me the story, man.
It was pretty crazy, because, we half expected, sure, we're opening for Ailstorm. It's a sold out show. It's the Metro. That's really cool. But we're opening and, doors at 8, we're on at 8:15. It does take a long time to get a lineup of people with all the tickets checked to get in.
Sure.
Doors were early.
Yeah.
So by the time we got out, it was full.
So hot tip to all the bands that are opening for international bands or whatever, make sure you're on time. Make sure you're so well prepared that your sound check just goes
super swimmingly,
and then you're done. It might even help a few more punters get in before they actually see you. Huh?
Yeah. So naturally, and we did get to see that as the punters were flying in the door, they were all going straight to the merch line because they knew.
Oh, it'd be hard to do it later.
It would be hard to do it later, whether or not their size is sold out or whatever the case. A lot of people lined up to get out of the way, and the merch line was ridiculous. But nonetheless, the room that we're playing to was still, full. The crazy part, that was the fortunate part, right? The crazy part was when we walked out onto the stage. And I mean, you've walked out onto a stage before. Yeah. I've walked out onto stages before. But you've also been to big gigs where it's really, all the punters are really anticipating the band to walk out onto the stage. That happened to us.
The people were hungry, man.
The people were hungry. And like, all we did was walk out onto the stage and everyone was like, yeah. And we were like, we haven't even done anything. Like, we were like, yeah, back at them. Like, what's going on? This has never happened before, So that was like the first hint of like, this is the real deal right now.
Yeah, they were there for a good time, and they were there to get it, and you're there to give it to them, I guess.
Yeah, and that was our part of the deal. It's like we had to give it to them because they were definitely upholding their part of the deal for sure. We got through our set, like I said, which was amazing with the same sort of response, and the crowd was loving it. The crowd was loving all the music every time. And the same thing when you're a punter in the crowd of a big show, whenever you make eyes in a general direction of the crowd, that section of the crowd that you're looking at is all like, looking back at you. Or Vaughan would stand up on the podium and getting into one of his solos, and there'd be all dudes on the barrier like reaching out to him like, doing these ones. And
good vibes.
And I was just like, oh man, how is this happening to us? And I guess maybe it's just the culmination of it's been a long time coming, and maybe we were always going to do something, of that magnitude, and it just hadn't happened yet. And perhaps it won't even happen again. Like, and we're just really lucky right now. I'd like to think that we can, do more now that we've been seen to have done that.
Yeah, of course.
People can say like, hey, you've done that, surely you can do that again. No one did that for you.
No.
Except for the fact, we were invited to play such a big show. People are hungry for the shows, because they haven't been able to go to shows. And, I remember seeing my Facebook memories just a day or two after the show that we had seen Ailstorm at the Metro like 7 years ago to the day, which was kind of cool. And yeah, you're right. That people are gagging for it, and we've seen that at the other shows we've been to, since lockdowns lifted. Going to Brisbane and going to Canberra and going to those shows in Melbourne, and people are really
I think
receptive to it.
I think you're almost selling yourself short here, because you're not just striking while the iron is hot here. You've been in a position to strike when the iron gets hot. I think people don't realize how important that period before you get your opportunity is to be able to step up to the plate. People might too often think that they'll be able to step up to the plate when they get the opportunity, but they're not ready, right? But Evocatus was ready.
I think so.
You've done all this work. You played all these shows. You released the music. You rehearsed it. You were ready. It wasn't like you were coming out of retirement to do this thing, right?
No, that's a good point.
That is probably a contributing factor to why it went so well for you, and why you got picked, why you were visible to the people that were organizing this stuff and all that sort of stuff, is because you were doing that right stuff. That whole time you've been waving the flag and whatever. You've been the stalwarts. You've been doing the legwork the entire time, when other bands may have just dropped off the radar at the wrong times and so on. So
I mean, I guess you're right, and like, I appreciate you saying that, because it definitely means a lot more. When someone else from the outside looking in can say that, rather than us just say that about ourselves. And for sure, man, like, you've been a part of that yourself as well. In the years gone by and leading up to that, both in your your tenure. You played with us live on stage for 2 whole years, and you're on Tartarus as a I guess a session guitarist, and you've got your own solos, the solos that you wrote for that record, and Cal's playing them, and he's playing them different, but that's okay. They're near enough to the same thing. But that's definitely part of it, man. And the other part, like the inspiration that you guys have for us and for me, is the music that you're making. And I can't wait for that one thing for you guys, and I'm sure it's like right on the cusp of like something clicking like that, and you guys playing big shows too, because I remember the way it made me feel when you guys got shows like opening for Nabla Viscaris and Gilligilla's Horse, and I was like, oh man, finally, like, this stuff is now happening for Loom, because it's such a crime that this music of this scale goes relatively unnoticed,
well, I don't think we were particularly well prepared for those shows. I think to reflect a bit critically on how Loom have done, we haven't done a lot of the stuff that you guys have done, and that you might even owe some of your success to, and that is something I want to try and correct for future reference. You guys are, I think, a model for so many bands who are not realizing their potential. You guys are the poster child of a band who actually does the work and is able to do it, and to see the response you got to that show just made me so happy for you guys. I think you absolutely deserve it. You have done the thing, and then you have actually gotten the rewards for it. I think it's absolutely great.
Yeah. Whether or not it's riding the momentum or not letting it get to our heads, but also recognizing that, like, hey, that's a thing that we've done now, and we've proven that we can do it. And then trying to not lose sight of what we're trying to achieve next. We wouldn't be actively looking for more shows right now. The phone's there, call us if you've got a cool show for us.
I think they will. It seems to,
But I think the focus and the energy for us now is to putting into full-length album number 3.
Yep.
and that's where our energy needs to be at the moment, which we're already well and truly on track.
Yeah.
But it's been on the cards for a long time, so we need to get on with it.
I mean, does that look like in reality you getting offered a show and then refusing it? I don't know. Does it?
Look,
maybe depends.
This will be one where we're going to pick our battles, and not because we can afford to be picky or we're better than that or anything like that. I think it's probably going to be easier to turn something down if there's one little thing that doesn't line up. Like, let's say that one of us is not available for a certain show, and it would be a major pain in the ass to have to reschedule whatever else is going on in that circumstance to be able to play that show. We could all just take comfort in the fact it's like, guys, we'll give this one a miss because Shields is not available or whatever.
Picking the battles, that is important. Like this is why I declined, being in Evocatus in a more full-time capacity, because I knew I wouldn't be able to get it done and the loom at the same time.
You had stuff going on.
Yeah, it's regretful, but at the same time, if you do have goals and you want to achieve them, you do have to know when to say yes and when to say no.
Yeah, pick your battles. That's a great example, man. And I remember when you came to me and said, it's probably time for me to take a step back from Evocatus for a while because I've got this new loom thing. And we were like, oh man, don't even trip. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, we appreciate what you've done for us, and we always will, and work together in the future again.
It certainly is a skill that I have gotten better at, is being able to say no to things, right? Yeah. And realizing the extent of your limits, and
man, look what you've done since the whole reason why you stepped away was to do
a thing, and I have released a
Grand False Caress, and I don't know, kids, if you haven't checked out Grand False Caress yet, I hear it's pretty good.
Have you heard of these guys?
Maybe,
the Loom of Time?
Yeah, suss that out. Get back to us. Let us know what you reckon. We might check them out too.
Yeah, we'll do a review someday, right? Album number 3, then. You got that coming along, huh?
Yep.
All right. Do you guys have a timeline for that? Or it's a mystery?
It's very loosely, and Vaughn will be proud of me for saying this, but it will be out in 2023.
Ooh. You heard it here first, folks.
I don't know how.
Unless you heard it
there's a lot of work to do, but 2023 is a long time.
Yeah, okay.
And we haven't got there yet. 12 and a half months.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's coming out in Christmas 23, but the goal...
Or is a Christmas album, right?
The goal is to have it out in 23. And I know that our cycle for the last bunch of records, maybe all of our records, has been every 3 years. Yep. So it roughly lines up with that anyway. Okay. So, self-titled EP, self-made at home on my computer, was 2014, and then Mortem came out in 2017.
Yep.
Like Easter 2017, and then Tartarus was October 2020.
Yep.
So October 23 is 3 years.
Is the schedule.
Yep. So loosely based around that, but not because it's a 3-year gap. It's just because that's about where we're at in the pre-production.
One last thing then.
Yeah.
Tell me, gig's finished. You're getting off the stage. How are you feeling? What do you do? What's going through your brain? What's the post gig celebration like? It
was total like it's mayhem at first. Oh, sorry, at very first, when you've just finished doing the whole like big
yes.
And then yelling random stuff, thank yous and whatnot into the audience. Yeah. The lights cut, the sound cuts, the Korn comes back on through the PA, and you and you are like walking off stage, high-fiving each other. But that moment lasts for like 4.5 seconds, where it becomes apparent that there are other people rushing the stage and starting to unplug stuff and running around. And, Adam is, furiously toweling himself off, and then like at the same time trying to undo all his cymbals and everything like that. Yeah. So it's very frantic for the next 10 minutes in terms of like yeeting all your stuff off the stage.
You wouldn't get a chance to just relax and...
and yeah, because like particularly too, because we were changing over with Valhalla, and like we have got some stuff on the stage and we had to get it off the stage. Valhalla stuff was already on the stage except for the drums, and those drums are big, so we needed to afford them all the time they could have. But from what I can remember, everything went on time. It was smooth. There were no hiccups. I'd love to be corrected on that. I wasn't there for most of it, like because I got as much my stuff out of the way as I could, as early as I could, and gave everyone else a hand as much as I could, and then just get the hell out of the way because there is so much traffic. To the punter, the metro stage might look quite wide. The drum riser takes up a lot of the stage, and the depth of the stage was quite narrow in terms of like foot traffic between the monitors and the drum riser. So it was pretty frantic on the stage there during changeover.
All right. So that chaos dies down.
That chaos dies down, and then it becomes a point where you go backstage and we get all that leather crap off. We're peeling it off each other, and we're all, soaking wet. And then I guess there's another point where we're kind of all sort of sitting there shirtless for the first time, just going, oh, man, how good was that? And then there'd be some like banter going on about like, what about this and what about that? And you remember this, and then you got that wrong and blah, blah, blah. No one noticed that and ha, 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 blah, blah, blah. Anyway, then people from there, we kind of dispersed. And for probably the next 30 minutes, I didn't see any of the guys because we all went our separate directions. Because like most of us had all of our, significant others there. So we're going to go catch up with them. As soon as it was funny, I went from the backstage, which is like just side stage you can access from the crowd.
Yes.
Like there's a set of stairs there where there's a security guard.
Okay. Yep.
To backstage.
Yep.
So I'd emerge from there, brush past the security guard, and the first guys I saw, first guy I saw, once I'd got out into the crowd, was a familiar face, like a guy I know from work.
Right. Yep.
He was like, "Hey, Shieldsy, how you going?" And I was like, "Hey," and it took me a second or two to register who it was. And I know him.
Yeah,
and I even knew he was going to be there.
It was a contextual thing.
It was a contextual thing. It's like I normally see him in high vis and a hard hat. Anyway, it was the first I'd seen him. I didn't get to see him beforehand. I didn't get to see anyone beforehand. We were there before anyone, and then we just appeared on stage to 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So he was the first guy I saw, and so I caught up with him, and then he goes, "Look who I've brought with me," and he brings someone out from behind him, and it's another guy from work who I had no idea he was coming. And I was like, "Oh man, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Yeah."
They know the lead singer.
That was
from
amazing,
the band,
and it was a cool feeling even to show people, what I do outside of, what they know me as.
Yeah.
In my element, as it were.
What a place to learn about what Shieldsy done in his free time.
And even there was another guy, even an apprentice of mine who was in the crowd, who I knew he was going to be there, but it was just, it was nice, to know that people that know me out of context, to see me doing that kind of stuff.
Yes, yeah. I mean...
and even, that it went so well.
Yeah, because no doubt, over the years that people, spend time making music like this, it can often seem silly to a lot of people and so on, but you put in all this work and then it comes to a head and you achieve the goals that you want and people, for people to see you achieve your goals, it suddenly puts into perspective all that you've been working for, and
that's right.
Must be a good feeling.
I think, and even for those people, I think those very specific people hadn't seen my band perform live.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only painting they have of what my band is now.
Yeah.
Is these I don't know.
Sold out at
rock
the Metro.
Stars. It's not accurate.
It's not at the in line with your average with the shows that you've done before.
Exactly.
But it is accurate in that you actually did that.
So
there was 100% you guys there.
Apologies in advance for next time you come out to see us live. It's probably not going to be like that.
So you're going to take smaller shows, are you, Shieldsy?
No, we are. So I want to make that clear that. When I said before that for going forward, when we were going to pick our battles, it's not like
only giant battles.
We don't get out of bed for less than 1,000 people now.
Yeah.
Not at all.
And that's what I would expect, because I know that the work ethic of the work you put in so far suggests that this is what it takes to get to those places, right? And that is the kind of thing that it takes, right?
I can't wait to play the Hamo again. That's a great place.
Yeah. Hey, and if you've got that attitude, if you love the small shows as much as the big ones, because you like what you do, then I think people can tell that, and when they see you on stage, they know they get that energy as well. Yeah. It's a good show.
I hope
stage
so.
presence.
That's what we're aiming for. And as much as a lot of our live show could be seen as silly or gimmicky or fake or whatever. Like, whatever, man. It's just like one of the flavors. How many different flavors of metal are there?
This comes with the territory of the kind of music that we make, that there's some...
So, yeah, I'll still play that to 11 people.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's cool, man.
Yeah.
I like it. If you like it, that's a bonus.
Yeah, if you like doing it, I think that's so super important.
Yep.
Yep. For people to connect with the band, for a band to be good live, for stage presence and whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're in that position, that's a good recipe you got there for a good show, I think.
100%.
So you know what? I think we'll leave it there. You've heard the recipe. Now you can take the ingredients and make it your own if you like. But
now you've got to go do it.
Now I've got to go and do it. That's right. I have to go and do it. So yes, I am looking forward to doing some shows.
Amazing.
I do hope that we get to play together at some point. It would obviously be wonderful to stand in the shadow of such wonderful, big sellout show musicians.
We'll have to get Sarah Lise on board too, just to annoy Brad.
Just to give him extra work to do. Yeah. Yes, I think we should.
He's got to take 3 different outfits, probably 3 different basses.
All right. Thanks, Shieldsy. This
no
been
worries,
good.
man.
I'll probably ask you even more questions about this show as they pop up in my brain. But so, guys, keep your eyes out for more live things happening, and keep those fingers crossed for a 2023 Evocatus new album release. If they can keep their schedule.
Yeah, very busy. We need to be diligent and disciplined.
Of course.
Yep, double Ds.
But but you've done it before. You can do it again.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need to find that drive and stick to it.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I'll check you out in the Discord or online somewhere. We'll probably see you in a couple of weeks. Adios.
Nice one. See ya.
Bye-bye.